Welcome to episode 6 of Wrestling with the Mind, a podcast where we raise awareness on mental health. I'm your host, Matt Sigmund, health coach by day, pro wrestler by night. I thought it could be fun to have a chat with somebody who is in the wrestling business, but from a different perspective, and that being a promoter. So I'm excited to sit down with Brian Hawks today, who is co-promoter of AML Wrestling and WrestleCade that happens annually, to just get a glimpse into what mental health looks like for him and dealing with the situations promoters can take on and seeing it from that point of view. But before we dive into that, just a little bit of housekeeping. I know I say this each and every week, but I can't thank you guys enough for the support. Over the last few weeks, you guys have gone above and beyond in helping get the word out around this podcast, and we continue to grow week by week and look forward to doing so even more as time goes on. So if you haven't done so yet, please go to WrestlingMind.com. That has the links where you can subscribe through your favorite podcast service, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon, Google. We are pretty much anywhere and everywhere podcasts are distributed now. So please go on there, subscribe, review, and share. That will help us grow this podcast, which in turn, it will help us help others who are going through a challenging time with their mental health. Many of you have been requesting for us to do a mental health tip of the week. Self-care is something that we talk about a lot with our guests on the podcast here. This is something we could highlight as a mental health tip this week. Now, self-care is an important aspect of maintaining good mental health. It refers to activities and habits that individuals engage in to take care of their physical, mental, and emotional well-being. Self-care activities can include activities such as exercising, eating a healthy diet, getting enough sleep, and engaging in hobbies and interests. It's important to note that self-care is not just about pampering yourself, but also about taking steps to maintain good mental health and prevent burnout as well. This can involve setting healthy boundaries, learning to say no to unreasonable demands, and finding time for activities that bring you joy and relaxation. By prioritizing self-care, you can improve your mood, reduce stress and anxiety, and increase your overall well-being. So make sure to include self-care in your daily routine and experiment with different activities to find what works best for you. Now, before we dive into our chat with Brian, I would like to do another guided meditation focusing on finding peace in familiar places. If this is not your thing, you can fast forward a minute or so and dive right into the chat we have today. But if it is something you would like to participate in, go ahead and sit back and enjoy. Find a comfortable and quiet place to sit, and let's begin. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath in through your nose, filling your lungs with air. Hold for a moment, and then slowly release the breath out through your mouth. Think about the places that bring you peace and comfort. It could be a place that you visited in the past, a place that you go to now, or somewhere you imagine. Imagine yourself in this place now. See the colors, feel the textures, hear the sounds. Take another deep breath in and feel the peace and calm settle over you. Focus on the feelings of relaxation and comfort that wash over you in this place. Let them fill you completely and allow yourself to be completely present in the moment. When you are ready, slowly begin to open your eyes. Take one more deep breath in and feel the peace and relaxation continue to stay with you. I hope you found peace and comfort in this guided meditation. And now, let's jump into our chat with Brian Hawks. Hey, so I'm sitting here with Brian Hawks. Brian, how are you today?
I'm fantastic. How are you, sir?
I can't complain. It's a Monday that we're recording this, so it's been a Monday, but it is the start of a fresh week. So I wanted to thank you, first of all, for taking some time out of your day and hopping on here with us to chat. I know we've talked for a few weeks about doing this, and we kept kind of delaying a little bit here and there, but I am glad to get you on here and so we can dive into things. Before we do people in wrestling, especially those actually involved in wrestling, they know you from the promoter side of things. But for the other people who are listening who really don't know much about wrestling, that kind of thing, they're just kind of seeing this branch out for the first time. Give them a bird's eye view here of Brian Hawks.
Uh, so that's tough. Married guy for 14 years, 2 kids, 11 and 9. So that's where your mental health part will come in later.
Yeah.
Been doing professional wrestling since 2012, and that's why I have no hair. And into racing too, so I've been into racing longer than I have wrestling. So
Okay.
there's always that part
Yeah.
of life also.
And I think, we met through professional wrestling, I think in 2014, 2015, somewhere along that time. So we've known each other almost 10 years, which is hard to believe when you think about it, just how fast time has flown here lately. Especially, it seems the older I get, the faster it goes. And so does the hair and everything. I'm getting right there with you.
Right.
I blame the business for that, the stress that has led to that, though.
Absolutely.
Yeah, in terms of mental health, since we do focus the majority of it here on mental health, and it's not necessarily a wrestling podcast, but I would love to kind of pick your brain on what does good mental health look like for you.
I would say that for me, 2019-ish is when I found a good release for me was the gym.
Mm-hmm.
Saw a picture of myself at Charlotte Motor Speedway sitting with a couple friends watching some racing, and I was like, holy crap, that guy is humongous. And that's where I've kind of had the mental release, is getting off work, going to lift weights, and kind of just relieving some stress for the day, which has been excellent.
Yeah. And I mean, in terms of just being that good form of stress relief, the gym has always been that anchor point for me. No matter what's going on with my day, good or bad, that's where I'm going to be either setting the tone for the day or finishing up for the day and just kind of unwinding. So that's always been a good point for me too. And I see, in terms of just the gym, you started posting here and there. We can't work out without some form of gym selfies, right? And so I have seen you post here and there, and you have, it looks like you've put some hard work in there over the last couple of years.
Yeah, up until so I had surgery December 1st of last year. So for 4 weeks, I couldn't do anything. So starting in January, I went 39 days in a row before I took a day off. And that was just because I had to do a wrestling show and had to work the same day. So just couldn't fit it in the schedule. There
couldn't make it work. But I'm sure, and I've talked to, Tracy Myers, your business partner here with AML Wrestling and WrestleCade, about this. The amount of steps that you guys get just doing the promoting side of walking these buildings from one side to the other and bouncing all around that you guys have to do is enormous. It adds up so much throughout the day. Have you ever tracked your steps during a show day?
Yeah, I always usually have a watch on, so I usually see it. But like WrestleCade, there's one day where you walk like 8 or 9 miles in a day, and you haven't walked outside of a building.
Right, and
literally you're in the same building.
You're in like a convention center that's connected to a couple of hotels here and there just right by, but not a big amount of space in terms of 8 or 9 miles. But you are just going back and forth so much that you're piling on those steps for sure.
This past year, I said screw it and didn't even wear dress shoes. I just put on a pair of gym shoes and said, you know what? If you're offended by what I'm wearing, then you can worry about it some other day.
Yeah. You said you've been in the wrestling business since 2012. And in terms of wrestling itself and the business, you've faced it a lot different than I have, because I see it through the eyes of a wrestler. And so you get to see it from this totally different perspective in terms of what you have to deal with going into events, because you're doing the promoting side. You are doing all the groundwork that lets a lot of the guys like myself do our job. And so that brings on a lot different of an environment, a lot different stressors than what we would normally face. So how has the professional wrestling business, good or bad, impacted your mental health?
Pretty terrible when we first started, especially with AML. And I would say that's pretty much anybody that gets into promoting independent wrestling. because there's all these unwritten rules that you have to follow, and
Hmm.
there's all these things you have to worry about, and what guys are working where, and all these companies, and just it's such when you first get into it, it's like all you worry about. Like, there's a friend of mine now running a show, and I feel like he's going through the same thing, and it's ruining his life. But it's like you worry about such small things, and the good news is now we're in 2023. I've been doing it since 2012, so now I don't care what promotion runs what date. I don't care who works where. Once you get to that point in wrestling where you realize that if you just focus on what you're doing and just focus on that and not what anybody else is doing and not care what anybody else is doing.
Yeah.
You not that we've never been not successful,
Right.
but in the past probably 2 years since I think COVID changed a lot of our minds about how we focused on things and when we couldn't actually go have fun during the weekend and stuff like that. I think it's when it changed my mind. But since we've came back and we've just focused on what we're doing, it's been our attendance has grown and everybody's having a lot more fun backstage. You're not talking about some of that silly stuff anymore. So, but when you first start out and you're worrying about that stuff, man, you will literally drive yourself insane worrying about stuff that just at the end of the day just does not matter. So,
And I think over the years, my mindset on that has changed dramatically too. And now, that said, there is a time and place to be very hardworking and very specific when it comes to business and pushing events and getting things lined up to draw the money, which is required, right? But at the end of the day, a lot of the drama and the headaches that can come from wrestling, man, they just don't matter. Because after it's all said and done, for me, I want to come home and relax and feel good and play with my 4-year-old, and my mind is it's in a different world. And it used to be just 24/7 wrestling, and so for me, that has changed over the years as well. Now, how do you prioritize self care for you? I know being in the business, it can make it challenging. You mentioned the gym. So, what is the prioritization of self care for you?
so I mean, a lot of that's so my job is not the easiest either, so it's kind of stressful. So I run a automotive repair shop. So anybody that normally comes to see me during the day probably isn't the happiest person anyway. I mean, even if they just get an oil change, I mean, you've literally had to stop what you're doing. That's just not a good place to be. You don't want to
Yeah.
sit in a repair shop and get your oil changed. Or if your car's broken, you're definitely in a ticked off mood. And you literally that's what I do all day long.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of ups. There's a lot of downs. You just got to learn to focus on that. I've learned over the years listening to like Joe Rogan's podcast and David Goggins is another one on Instagram. You just and reading his books.
He's
Um,
awesome, by the way. I saw him do a speech in Louisville, Kentucky one year at a conference I was at. He's an inspirational dude, man. I haven't read the book, though. Is the book good?
yeah, yeah. And it's. I mean, I'm not done with it, but it's definitely. I've got it sitting on my desk at work. But I mean, at the end of the day, you got to realize that probably 80% of your day is mental, and when you can focus on trying to be in a good mood and reflect on positive things, you usually have positive results. But if you focus on that negative stuff, then probably all day long you're going to have negative results. And if you ever start thinking that something's hard, he'll read put in one of his books or see that he's walking with a broke foot and doing a 5K and telling you not to be a so then you can't be a anymore. So,
Yeah. Oh man. From the promoter side, I know you get that window into the locker room and seeing all the good and the bad that can come from it. And I feel from what I see or from what I've seen over the years, mental health, just overall health in general, has become a stronger thing within the locker room over the last just even 10 years compared to what it used to be. There is a lot better focus, I think, just on us feeling good from day to day and not killing our bodies as we go from show to show, and just keeping our mental health in a good spot because there have been so many dark points within wrestling. And so I know you've seen it from a different kind of viewpoint than what I've been able to. What do you wish more people in wrestling and more people just kind of overall understood more about mental health?
probably the biggest thing, especially in wrestling, is just communication. There's always a communication breakdown somewhere, whether it's you don't think you're getting paid enough, you don't think you're getting the right spot, you don't think you're in the right match, you don't have chemistry with somebody, somebody's doing you wrong. Probably 90% of those conversations, if you would just communicate, probably would be squashed pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And I even made that mistake probably this week, worrying about. So I mean, literally, somebody didn't take one of our bookings, and I worried about it for like 2 weeks, like wondering why they wouldn't take a booking from us. Until I finally just reached out and I was like, I don't know why I didn't do this before, but like, why wouldn't you take our booking? And then figured it out. It didn't have anything to do with us. It was something totally different, and
Yeah.
communicated the situation through, and now everything's gravy and back on the road. So it's more of just a communication thing, just wrestling in general or in life in general. Just communication
Yeah.
is the key to success normally.
I would agree with that. And I think, there have been times, and I won't go into crazy specifics here, but there have been times, like even between us, because, we used to work a lot with AML, and there have been times when our communication could have been a lot better. I'll put it
Oh
at
yeah.
that, and that is what it is, and that was years ago and under the bridge, but I think that is something that I've tried to do better too, because, like you said, not even just in wrestling, life in general. If you are more open with people and direct, and you actually are communicative with people you're working with or working for, or just trying to do any form of business or relationship with, it's going to be a lot better than
Right.
if you don't,
Absolutely.
right? So I think that is a key takeaway that many people could benefit from, just overall in general here in life. You mentioned how you had the surgery in was it December?
Yep. December the 1st.
Okay, and that kind of pulled you a little bit away, at least for a short term, from where you find that good form of self care through the gym. How do you deal with setbacks like that? What's that mindset going in to kind of push forward?
So that, I mean, it happened before WrestleCade too, is when, so I woke up in the middle of the night and thought I had food poisoning. The pain kind of eased up the next
Hmm.
night, got like 15 times worse to the point, like, I don't even like going to the doctor, but I was like, I got to go to the hospital. Like, something's wrong.
Yeah.
Um, and sat there for like 7 hours, couldn't get any answers there. So ended up going to a doctor. It was a long process, but actually through the whole WrestleCade process, I was scared to eat anything the whole weekend. So I think I had one turkey sandwich and like five Gatorades in the whole 3 days.
And, and,
So
and for those who don't understand this, right? When he says WrestleCade, WrestleCade's a convention that they set up every, Thanksgiving weekend, roughly, give or take, every year, and it's a 3-day endeavor with legitimately thousands of people from all over the country, if not the world. And so you're having to deal with a lot of business pressure here on a turkey sandwich and
right,
five Gatorades.
right. So even in the middle of like Fan Fest, like
Yeah.
you're trying to make sure everybody's got water and answering 5,000 questions that are all 4,900 of them are probably irrelevant and don't matter. And then you get called downstairs to do a sound check so you can produce the show downstairs. And you've got to worry about getting everybody from signing autographs downstairs so they can wrestle because it all happens so quick. Trying to get the show started on time on Friday night was a disaster this year. Just things like that. So, I mean, the setback probably started there. Like, it's not a good weekend to just not eat and be that stressed out. But
Hmm.
I think having the month off to not go to the gym and just kind of relax at home did a little good too. Because I use it every day, and I don't think probably not a good idea to work out every day like I do. You probably should take some rest days because
Yeah,
I
and
stay
I
pretty
was going to
sore
say,
myself.
Brian, I'm not a doctor, but I have been in the fitness field for a long time and health coaching too. Your body does need recovery time, and
Yeah,
that's not to say for those that are in the gym and training, you can still go, and there are ways to balance it out. But in terms of training like your muscle every single day, you do need that rest and recovery time, and then maybe throw in a light cardio day here and there just to
right.
balance things out a little bit.
But it was not. I mean, it was also December, so Christmas shopping, things get a little busy with the holidays, so it wasn't a terrible time for surgery to need to happen.
Mm.
So,
And
but I
have
mean,
we recovered well? Are we feeling good and mobile?
oh no, I mean, I was back in the gym, I think a week and a half doing cardio only.
Okay.
So I still went. I didn't not go. I mean,
Yeah.
I made it sound like I didn't go, but I took about a week and a half off,
Oh
and I
gosh,
went
Brian,
back.
that's a big break.
Yeah, and I did like an hour of cardio like the first day back, like treadmill, and then that whole weekend I just sat on the couch because I was like, yeah, I think I went back too fast.
Mm. We have a lot of people listening to this podcast, and they'll find it very interesting just to hear from you because you do have that promoter side of things. A lot of people that are listening are going through some challenging times. They are struggling mentally and some physically too. What advice, if any, do you have for anybody going through just a challenging time? What would you tell those people?
I mean, you've most everybody needs somebody to talk to, so find you somebody you can trust, communicate them, and somebody out there's got some kind of life advice that could help along the way. Any kind of friend you got to have to decompress, trust in and just communicate with to try to make it through things because it's definitely not good to hold stuff in and think about it all day long and marinate on it. So
Yeah.
definitely find somebody to talk to for
It
sure.
goes back to that communication piece like we were talking about a bit ago, being
Correct.
able to be open about things and finding the help you need. And if there is not somebody directly that you can call right away. There are outlets out there, even online. There's things like BetterHelp and a lot of mental health programs online. Then there's some of the other services that are in each of your communities to wherever you're listening to this. I'm sure there are some really good resources out there for you to connect with others. Well, Brian, I have enjoyed this chat. Anything that you would like to plug at the moment? Anything you would like to throw out there? Where can we also find you online?
You can go to the Twitter at the Brian Hawks, and I don't think I've tweeted since I angered every Kenny Omega fan on Twitter and said that storytelling was greater than 5-star matches. So I just was sitting at work one day, had a thought, put it on Twitter. I don't even tweet, and then like
The one
two
time
days
you
later,
do.
it's got like 145,000 views, and everybody
Yeah.
with Kenny Omega as their bio or their cover photo was angry at me for 3 days. So Facebook, where I promote the wrestling and kind of share the events that are coming up and kind
And
of do the rule.
what does AML have coming up?
February 25th, we're doing our first ever Winston-Salem scaffold match. It's not going to be like Night of the Skywalkers. I think a lot of people think it is. We're creating our own type of scaffold match,
Put
which
a spin
is,
on it.
yeah, which is something we're trying to do, something new. We've done war games twice now, and this should be interesting. So we'll see how it goes. Soldier Slaughter will be there. It's at the
Is
same
Sergeant
arena.
Slaughter going to be in the scaffold match?
And I don't think so, brother.
Please don't get Sergeant Slaughter hurt.
No, we had Jerry Lawler at our show, and then he had a stroke. So we're hoping not to
But
do anything like that ever
he
again.
didn't have it at the show, right?
No, no, no. It was afterwards. But I'm gonna tell you, I was really shocked because I mean he looked fantastic. He got in the ring and still worked.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I heard he had a stroke, I was like, my gosh, I was just with him 2 weeks ago, and he looked phenomenal. I mean, he really did. He
And
looked
that's the
great in
scary
the
part,
ring.
You can be going day to day and think that everything is smooth sailing, and then obstacles can just hit you out of nowhere. And Jerry does. Jerry stays active. I was with him, I think, right after Christmas at the Music City Bowl, in great shape,
Yeah.
working hard, looking great. So it can happen. But thankfully, he is okay and able to kick out and push forward. Well, my friend, I've appreciated the time today. I'd love to have you back on down the line where we can dive in a little bit more. But we will talk soon, and I hope to see you soon, my friend.
There you go. See you, buddy.
All right. I want to thank Brian yet again for coming on for a few minutes and sharing a little bit about his story and giving us his perspective on good mental health. A few quick notes. Brian mentioned David Goggins, who is a wonderful inspirational speaker. He has some books out that are available. They're really good to dive into. Brian was talking about one of them. Two of the books, Can't Hurt Me, and another one that just came out last year called Never Finished, are both by David and are available, I think, worldwide on Amazon and just about anywhere you can get books. So if you get a chance, check those out and find some inspiration from him. I thank you guys for tuning in again this week. when you get a chance, please get on your social media, share this, help us get the word out, help us grow this podcast. You can go to WrestlingMind.com for all things related to the podcast and ways to subscribe. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. Take care.